Jeff.
I want you to know it's over.
Well, bye.
You smell that, Bill? Smells like someone died.
Jesus, Johnny.
Adiós, cabrón.
All right. Take Stillwell. Finish it.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
That was a tribute to character actor Powers Booth, who passed away this past Sunday, I believe, at the age of 68. One of the finest character actors, I thought, of our time. He was an absolute joy to watch. He won a 1980 Emmy for his portrayal of Jim Jones in the Guyana tragedy, The Story of Jim Jones. And that was Powers Booth saying goodbye to Curly Bill Brocius. And also he played Cy Tolliver in the HBO series Deadwood, which I thought was absolutely, absolutely fabulous. Sleep well, Powers Booth. You'll be remembered. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Fluffy's going to be a bartender tonight. She pours with the best of them, and, importantly, the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the drinks are not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, for God's sakes. Put the seat down. Jiggle the handle. Don't forget to tip your waiter or your waitress. These days, your server. So tonight, on the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Oh my gosh. I had everything all lined up. Absolutely everything all lined up. And then this day changed. Well, actually yesterday was a massive, massive change. But the news today, oh my God. I have to say that in Washington, D.C., the news has absolutely nothing to do with governing. It does have everything to do anymore with just process. It's all about process. The American media maggots seem to think it's all about process. There's all sorts of shite that needs to be done. They're not interested in getting a thing done. So, tonight, I'm just going to have to be Semper Gumby. That's always flexible. First things first. I have the TOABBS here. He's the official attorney of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. That's the one and only White Mamba. He's going to be here tonight weighing in on all sorts of things. Hey, there's chat. Mike is in chat. Mary is in chat. Mary knows, of course, that her seat is already there. Her seat is the one with her name embroidered on the back of it. And, of course, by this time, 3 months. Is it 3 months? 3 months or 4 months? I think it's 3 months. Into the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show by the Bloviating Zeppelin. Everybody by now already knows that at the saloon, when you walk up to the bar, you don't put your keister in the seat that says Mary Brockman. You can, but otherwise you can't do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And by the way, if you're in the saloon, this is a new rule. If you're in the saloon and you're listening to the Sackheads radio show on Wednesday, which is what you need to do, you can't sit in Mary Brockman's chair either. Because whoever it is that's bartending is going to reach right over, grab a fistful of your collar, and pull you over the bar. Just thought I'd tell you that. Anyway, I had all these great things lined up, and then I had to trash it. I had to throw it all away. All the way. Number one, it's windy as hell here. Number two, now I'm in Sacramento. I'm in the belly of the beast. I live in a house way the hell up in the Sierra Nevada mountains, about the 4,000-foot level. Down here in Sacramento, the belly of the beast in Fornicalia, and we're broadcasting no more than about, I guess, 3 miles away from the capital. And I try not to let all that slime get all over me, but, I do have to drive here. In any event, there's so much stuff going on. Then it was windy as hell. It's been cold. My allergies were kicking my butt. My understanding is that Sean has gotten the Marburg. I don't know if you know what Marburg is. There are two deadly diseases. One is Ebola. The other one is Marburg. So Sean, while he was out in North Africa, and he was donating his time as a doctor. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he donates his time as a doctor to various villages in Africa. And while he was there, unfortunately, he contracted Marburg. So he won't be in the Sackheads. What I'm saying is he's not going to be in Sackheads tomorrow. So it'll be just Clint, Sackheads Clint, and myself. So I got to ask a question. Are we ever going to get 3 Sackheads together in the same room again? Will that ever occur? I'm not sure. Well, it won't. I can tell you definitely. It's not going to happen tomorrow. And I'm crossing my fingers, phalanges, and falafels, that it occurs next week. Anyway, White Mamba is going to be with us talking about all sorts of things legal. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to try to make sure that the new computer the new computer system. Mike in chat says, hey, is it hot as hell in there? And thank God, no, Mike, it's not hot as hell in here. Last week before, it was, in fact. Now outside, it's probably about 42 degrees, windy as hell. My allergies were kicking up. I took tons of allergy pills so I could speak on the radio tonight. So it's kind of weird. Oh, wait, that means that the religious left, who swear that there's nothing but anthropomorphic climate change, that is, man-caused climate change is responsible for everything, and obviously, who do I sue for anthropogenic climate change? Who do I sue because my allergies are kicking up? Oh, that's right, they do this every time of the year. Oh, that's right. These are called seasons. Maybe we should tell the leftists about that. Anyway, tonight we've got White Mamba, the official attorney of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. So we're going to talk to him. I say goodbye to Powers Booth. I love just about everything that he was in. Deadwood, really enjoyed that. If you could get around the cursing in Deadwood, it was a great show. A lot of people couldn't get past that. We're going to listen to Jay Sekulow. He's going to talk about the classified info in the Russian leaks. Maybe a little bit, by the way, Israel is all on board with that. They say there's actually no problem. The CIA says the Washington Post is bogus news. Isn't that interesting? Hey, what about Comey's memo about Trump? I got a question. How come right now? And what does that mean? What that means is the White House is well and truly under siege. CNN says, impeachment, off with his head immediately. People were asking then, were senators under surveillance from Barack Hussein Obama? And if I have time, I'm going to read you a little bit about, if you don't know Jeff Dunitz, you should go to yidblog.com. Jeff produces at least 1 to 2 original posts every darn day. And he discovered apparently that he has it on good information that Bill O'Reilly might be moving over to Glenn Beck's show. That's, I don't know, that's pretty damn weird. And here's another thing. Leftist attorneys say, you know what? If President Trump just says uncle, we'll roll over and let him have his travel sanction. Also, if we have time, we're going to try to talk about Seth Rich. And the question, of course, is, did Seth Rich actually contact WikiLeaks? If you're not familiar with the Seth Rich situation, tonight, if I have time, we're going to go into that. We're going to talk about the ACLU being Hypocrite Central. That should come as no surprise whatsoever. Oh, is there going to be a convention of the states? That's another thing that I want to talk to White Mamba about. Hillary's 501, her brand new loving 501c4 called Onward Together. Onward Together. Onward to screw over the people of America. That's exactly what that's about. It's about the screwing over of America. Because here's what the Clintons are going to do to us all.
You have a milkshake. And I have a milkshake. And I have a straw. There it is. That's a straw, you see. Watching. And my straw reaches across the room and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up!
And that's what the Clintons do. That's their job. They drink your milkshake. And guess what? The Clinton Foundation? Hillary Clinton's back to drink your milkshake all over again, anew. And she's doing it under a 501c4. If we have time, I'd very much like to talk to White Mamba about that. In the meantime, here's an article that Jay Sekulow. Jay Sekulow is from ACLJ, the American Center for Law and Justice. If you're not reading aclj.org, at least as frequently as you can, you're doing yourself a disservice. Jay Sekulow and his son, et al., other people, are suing on behalf of people like you and me to try to get to the bottom of damn near everything in this government. So in a recent article, Jay Sekulow from the ACLJ wrote this with the headline, and it's relevant today, of course, "Did the media create the story about President Trump revealing classified material to the Russians?" So Jay Sekulow writes, "It's clear that the liberal media and the political left will do anything they can to derail President Trump and his administration. Obviously." Oh, by the way, I'm going to editorialize as we go along here. The latest example is the laser-like focus on a bogus news story hatched by the Washington Post. That President Trump revealed classified material, including highly classified intelligence sources, to the Russians during his meeting at the White House last week. That story seems to have taken on a life of its own, despite strong and unequivocal denials from the National Security Advisor General H.R. McMaster. Stop. And he did that again today, because he was there at the meeting. He saw and knew exactly what went on. And Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, both of whom were in the meeting itself. Who should know? Well, they should know. The president is the commander-in-chief. He is our president. He has the constitutional authority to share what information he deems necessary with nations and their leaders. In the case of the meetings with top Russian officials, it's been reported that President Trump was discussing real threats from the Islamic State, ISIS, threats that President Trump understands present a clear and obvious danger to our country and to our freedoms. His desire to communicate with Russians in an attempt to enlist their support in battling radical Islamic jihadism should be applauded instead of attacked. Stop. All of this I'm going to just cut to the chase right now because this is how I was going to wrap up these 2 hours. So it's like making a speech. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you. That's all it is in a nutshell when you make a speech in front of people. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. And that's this. This is all because the Democrats and the American media maggots still, after 6 months, a minimum of 6 months, they still cannot get over the fact that November 9th occurred. They're still back at November 8th in the morning. They cannot believe, they will not believe, that President Trump actually beat Hillary Clinton. And in my mind, too, I got to admit, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, how the hell did that happen? But at this point, what, to quote someone very famous, what difference does it make? He's the president. He's the commander-in-chief. Now, all of a sudden, did you notice, said this before, the day directly after November 9th, that's when the Russian meme got shoved into the press, and the press took that football and they ran with it. Up until that point, the Democrats and the American media maggots couldn't have given a shite less about the Russians. But now, the Russians are involved in everything. In fact, you could make an excellent argument for the fact that the Russians are, right now, drinking our milkshake. But wait, I've heard a lot of security and defense analysts, and I'm trying to see if I can get her on next week. Oh, by the way, since I'm here and I'm thinking about it, because that's just the way the brain goes, up in the wheelhouse of the bloviating Zeppelin, this coming Thursday I'm going to have, crossed fingers, I'm going to have Pat Dollard on the air. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, and Pat will be, he'll be his usual wallflower. I'm really going to have to draw him out. And then I hope that next Tuesday, because there's so much going on in the security arena and the defense arena, I'm trying to get Susan Katz-Keating back on the air next Tuesday. But the whole thing about Russia is security analysts are saying and have been saying for quite some time that the most present, omnipresent threat to the United States is Russia. It's not necessarily China. They're not quite there yet. It's not North Korea, although he's a loon, you know that. But the people with, if ever the wrong finger gets pushed on a series of buttons from Russia, they quite presently have the ability to send numerous nuclear-tipped missiles into the United States, into the continental United States. So why is it? I've heard senators say that we should not even be speaking to the Russians at all. Are you fucking kidding me? What could be considered the greatest existential threat to the United States, the Russians, commanded by Vladimir Putin, and we shouldn't be communicating to him at all. To quote Monty Python, you're a loon. So people that are saying that we should sever ties with Russia, Trump's a negotiator. He's going to try to negotiate whatever it is that he can. So people are saying that just by dint of the fact that he met with Russians, that's bad, that's evil. Wouldn't you want to? Why is it that you should not meet with the Russians when you have a common enemy? ISIS. What's that old saying? You keep your friends close and you keep your enemies closer. But any time that you have the word Trump somehow introduced in some wacky way with Russia, or anything having to do with Russia, maybe Trump touched a nesting doll one day. I don't know. Maybe he ate a pierogi for lunch. Who knows? If he did, he's going to hell for it. And it'll be out in the press because, as we all know, President Trump gets 2 scoops of ice cream as opposed to everyone's 1 scoop. Because everyone's afraid that Russia is going to come over here, and particularly Donald Trump And he's looking at you right now. He's going to drink your milkshake. So Trump's desire to communicate with the Russians in an attempt to enlist their support in battling ISIS? You're going to say we shouldn't be doing that. That's just not right. President Trump's critics and opponents, including many in the news media, claim this faux story about President Trump provided classified material to the Russians puts the United States at risk. Jay Sekulow continues to write, the truth is, what's really putting our nation at risk is the flagrant leaking from within the federal bureaucracy. Stop. Absolutely. BZ standing up on a soapbox just for a moment. Here's what needs to be done. The first swamp to be drained, Donald Trump, is everyone around you, with a select exception of a handful. Anyone that has anything even closely resembling the slightest smidgen of a leak, you cannot hold those people close to you. And what needs to be done is there needs to be an example made of someone who has unequivocally been found to be a leaker of classified information. So no, you're not going to go after the press. You're not going to try to stifle the press. What you're going to do, Mr. Trump, is you're going to find whoever is leaking this, have the FBI sick the FBI on them with your new FBI director. That's a story for another day. And make sure that you set an example, and whoever that individual is, male or female, it doesn't make any difference. They must pay. People who oppose Trump, who are breaking the law when they leak classified information and classified materials. The real story, Jay Sekulow writes, the real crisis is the ongoing leak of classified information. That is serious and something that the Trump administration has to address without delay. How this latest story, quote, story, unquote, unfolded has become all too common in Washington. It's a manufactured crisis that puts our national security at risk. Let's hope Attorney General Sessions has impaneled grand jury to investigate these troubling leaks. These leakers need to face criminal charges and face prosecution. Just as I said, the Trump administration needs to send a strong message. It's time to seek out and prosecute those who are criminally leaking classified material. Here's another story I found on TruePundit.com. It's about the CIA and roughly the same situation. The Central Intelligence Agency is declaring the Washington Post's much-hyped story linking the Russian government to hacking the presidential election to help Donald Trump is an outright lie, according to CIA personnel with direct knowledge of the case. The Washington Post, in a front-page splash on Friday, this past Friday, fingered the CIA for allegedly confirming the wild rumors of Russian hacking that were concocted and spread by Democratic lawmakers for months preceding the election and the weeks since the GOP win. The Washington Post story, however, contained no CIA sources and, in fact, no credible U.S. intelligence agency sources whatsoever. Instead, it hinged on what unnamed lawmakers had supposedly been told by unidentified, supposed CIA-leaked sources in, quote, secret, unquote, briefings. So, back to Jay Sekulow. The fact is that many of those working to derail the Trump administration work inside the federal government. Bingo. That's it. They are part of the bureaucratic swamp and in many cases are loyal to President Obama and former Secretary of State Clinton. They are members of what is called the deep state. The continuing bureaucrats that have stayed behind after Mr. Obama and Hillary Rodham Clinton left. Sekulow nails it when he writes this. They don't like the way the election turned out, and they really don't like that President Trump is in the Oval Office. That's it. Bingo. Bang. Right there. There's no question that there's a deep state shadow government at work here. What we are experiencing is an unprecedented bureaucratic soft coup undermining our security. The Obama administration took action to empower the entrenched bureaucracy to subvert our national security right before leaving office. It has led to dangerous leaks, criminal violations of the Espionage Act, and the creation of a shadow government to sabotage the new administration. And that's what they're doing day in and day out. This is why I read the ACLJ, because he concludes with, at the American Center for Law and Justice, we're directly engaged in half a dozen lawsuits to expose the shadow government and stop these dangerous national security leaks. His final sentence, it's time to plug the leaks and to punish those who are responsible for leaking classified information. Hear, hear. Absolutely. Absolutely, without a doubt. Now, because we know what the goal of the American media maggots is, and they've almost made no effort whatsoever to not tell you what it is, there's an article from the UK Daily Mail. And this is the newest, of course, thing that came out. The headline is, Ousted FBI Chief James Comey claimed in write-up of Dinner with Trump that President asked him to let go the investigation into National Security Advisor Mike Flynn because, quote, he's a good guy. Now, this is, I frequently go to the UK Daily Mail, and we've got, looks like about a couple of more minutes to go before the bottom of the hour break. I'm going to read these bullet points, and then I'm going to tell you basically the bottom line out of all of this. The memo was written by fired FBI Director James Comey after February 14th meeting with Donald Trump, describes the president asking him to drop his Mike Flynn probe. The White House denies the claim, saying it's not a truthful or accurate portrayal of the conversation. Comey's memo also described a Trump request to prosecute and jail reporters who report on classified information leaked to them. Just 5 days ago, Trump warned Comey that he might have tapes of their conversations. Now it's Comey on the offensive, with his associates reading portions of his explosive memo to a New York Times reporter. Stop. Why now? Where's the memo? What's it take to call any American media maggot on the phone and say, hey, I've got a salacious tidbit just for you. I'm going to read to you a memo that former FBI Director James Comey wrote about a dinner meeting with President Trump, and you're going to love it. Ooh, and I'm going to read it to you right now, and you guys are going to throw it on. You're going to throw it on page 1 above the fold. I know it. I'm reading the memo right now. Here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Where's the memo? If you're going to call up an attorney, what's it cost for you to walk over to the copy machine, copy it, take a photograph of it, fax it, mail it, etc., to a reporter? Why not do the full thing? Oh, that's right. It's because the American media maggots don't have any scruples at all whatsoever anymore, and they don't need sources because, after all, they know better than you do. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying half of the stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sekulow as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back. Welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It's good to see you back. It's the bottom of the hour. In the left coast, it's 8:34. On the right coast, it's 11:34. In Bolivia, it's 27:29 and 79 seconds. I hope we have on the telephone right now the official attorney of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, what I call TOABBS, who is otherwise known as Mamba, White, one each. White Mamba, do you happen to be there, sir?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, but I'm afraid that it looks like...
Well, a bit of an echo.
Yeah.
I wasn't picking very well.
Hang on, let me see... Okay, this is the new laptop. And in the new laptop, let me turn these absolutely down. Okay, do we have the echo taken care of? Oh, this is not looking well. This is not doing well at all. All right, clearly there's some kind of a button that I have not pushed, something that I have not done. I'm hearing myself, but I'm not hearing... what have I done? I'm afraid I'm not smart enough to know. The funny thing is, okay, Sean came in here a couple of days ago and did a few things with this. Okay, there I go, blaming Sean because I don't know how to make this work. Tell you what, White Mamba, hang on. Let me see if I can make this work. We're going to, I know, this is going to be shocking. We're going to go to another one of these things right here, and we'll see if I can figure out the right button to push, because clearly it's a matter of buttons.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Okay. I've tried pushing and unpushing, pulling and not pulling just about every button and thing that I can think of here. This is what happens when you have a pseudo-techno-Luddite blockhead such as myself running this thing. The strange thing is, though I hated the old laptop, with this one it has some things that apparently I'm not familiar with just yet. I'm trying to see if... I just get the feeling there's some damn button that I haven't pushed for whatever reason to enable... let's try it once more. Mamba, are you there? Can you say anything?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but see, I can hear you through the speakers of the new laptop, but people can't hear you actually say anything on the other end here.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's a...
Wow, yeah, you sound clearer than you did on the phone before, but that doesn't mean that my end's coming through.
Okay, and that's what I'm afraid. HP Pundit in chat says, push the red one, not the blue one.
Not the blue one. Yeah, you don't want to ever push BZ. Try the speaker slider.
BZ, try the Spreaker slider. Yes, now there's one for microphone, there's one for cable output. That's the one that you're usually in on. If I could just magically stop the show, make a phone call to Sean and say, help me, Mr. Ed, can you help me, please? I'm afraid we're going to have to do this another time because I can hear you just fine. The people on the other end can't hear a thing. Mary Brockman says, I can hear him, but not very loud. And that's because, Mary Brockman, you're actually listening. You're hearing White Mamba through the speaker in the laptop, but you're not hearing him directly through the system itself, through the board. Let me turn this up just a little bit. Can say a few things, White Mamba, and we'll see if we can even hear you at all.
Oh, I thought about giving Neil Catal a call today on the phone.
Okay.
I have his number here if anybody wants it.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. This is great. This is why I love radio, because HP Pundit is in chat and says, that actually came from Sean. I'm chatting with Sean right now.
Well, have Sean call in. Fix your problem.
So, okay, HP Pundit is talking with Sean apparently, and who knows where I'll get a phone call or what I have to do. Obviously, there's some kind of a button that I need to push. God, this is absolutely conflicting. I'll tell you what, for right now, if you can stand by just a little bit, White Mamba, hang up. I'm going to see if Sean happens to call in. And if he does, maybe he can walk me through what kind of a process this is. And, of course, you'll be listening on the air. You'll be able to hear what's happening, and then I can, with luck, put you on so that everybody can actually hear what's going on right now. HP Pundit in chats is laughing my ass off. You know, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't be having any luck at all. So I'll tell you what, as Hugh Hewitt is wont to say, go ahead and hang up on yourself. All right, thank you. And we'll see if we can take care of this in some fashion, because this is only funny just for a moment because it's supremely bad radio. So in the meantime, all right, I was talking about an article that was written by the Daily Mail, the UK Daily Mail, and they were talking about this memo that Comey has where he basically said, I want you, President Trump told Comey to back off on the Mike Flynn probe. And Senator Chuck Schumer said on the Senate floor that he was shaken by the news, and Representative Nancy Pelosi raised the possibility of obstruction of justice. Funny, the federal law against obstruction of justice is purposely broad and could form the basis for an impeachment case against Trump. Okay, I'll showbiz myself a little bit right now, and that's this. At the end of the show, I was going to say nothing more than all of this is about the Democrats and the American media maggots can't get over the fact that Hillary Clinton lost. The American media maggots are on the side of everyone but Trump. And it's all pushing, sources be damned, to it's time to impeach Trump. Everything, have you noticed, is all about it's time to impeach Trump. That's where this is all going. It was initially started by Maxine Waters, and it's sort of taken up a life of its own. From the UK Daily Mail, former FBI Director James Comey accused President Donald Trump of asking him to close a federal investigation into disgraced General Mike Flynn during a February 14th meeting in the Oval Office. I hope you can let this go, Trump told Comey, according to a copy of a memo. This is what passes for news these days. According to a copy of a memo read to a New York Times reporter. And that's what I said before the break. This is what passes for news. What would it take for me to call up any reporter. In Sacramento, the leftist-leaning rag is the Sacramento Bee. So what would it take for me to call up any reporter at the Sacramento Bee and say, I have information here to indicate that Donald Trump came to Sacramento and I personally saw him urinate on a dog. And then someone wrote a memo about it. It came from someone in Russia. Now, I have a copy of that right here. Here's the copy of the memo. And Sacramento Bee reporter, with this memo, I'm going to read this to you right now. And that's all you need to create a story, is someone calling you up on the telephone, claiming to have a memo, reading it to a New York Times reporter, and then it becomes news. As I've said before, news about the news is news, according to the news. Comey reportedly wrote the memo immediately after he met with Trump as part of an effort to document situations in which the president sought to interfere in the FBI's operations. The White House quickly fired back, claiming in a statement that the president has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone else to end any investigation, including any investigation involving General Flynn. On Tuesday night, Jason Chaffetz, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, fired off a letter to the acting FBI director Andrew McCabe requesting to see, quote, all memoranda. Perfectly appropriate. All memoranda, notes, summaries, and recordings between Comey and Trump by May 24th. That would seem to be an incredibly reasonable request, correct? As a matter of fact, in this article, there's a copy of a tweet from Jason Chaffetz, which says, at GOP Oversight, which is the GOP Oversight Committee, at GOP Oversight is going to get the Comey memo if it exists. I need to see it sooner rather than later. I have my subpoena pen ready. That's reasonable. That's absolutely reasonable. But whoever this was, the leaker inside the White House, has decided that we're going to continue to focus on nothing but process, and all about process, and nothing about doing anything for the people of the United States of America. It's all about process. It's all about removing Trump. It's all about ensuring that we have an impeachment against Donald Trump. The White House issued a statement that read, the president has the utmost respect for our law enforcement agencies and all investigations. This is not a truthful or accurate portrayal of the conversation between the president and Mr. Comey. The White House also steered reporters toward McCabe's congressional testimony from last week. There has been no effort to impede our investigation to date, McCabe told Florida Senator Marco Rubio during a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing. Simply put, sir, you cannot stop the men and women of the FBI from doing the right thing, protecting the American people and upholding the Constitution, he added. But McCabe was referring to an investigation into the possible ties between Russia and the Trump campaign. Stop. Does this not get irksome? Does this not get tiresome? Does this not continue to be absolutely vile? Possible ties between Russia and the Trump campaign, which is separate from the investigation into Flynn. It just continues. It is absolutely wearisome. And trust me when I tell you, the American media maggots, they're simply not going to give up. Because that's what they do. If there's one thing that the Democrats have is unity. And it's one thing that I certainly wish the GOP had. Unity. They're all broken up. And they are invertebrate. They have no backbone, no spine. The bulk of them. Chaffetz, a Utah Republican, tweeted on Tuesday, I told you what he says, GOP oversight is going to get the Comey memo if it exists. I want to see it. Hours later, he fired off the letter to McCabe. Chaffetz cited the New York Times report, which stated Mr. Comey created similar memos, including some that are classified. Oh, what a shock that is. Didn't see that coming. Memos that are classified about every phone call and meeting he had with the president, the two people said. Chaffetz wrote, if true, stop right there. You know what? I got to go to an aside right here. Remember when Comey, now about a month ago, testified before the the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he went off on this self-serving rant, and then before that, in a prior appearance, he refused to answer questions 100 times, and the committee said, well, if you come back, because essentially the bottom line was, Comey said that he could only answer these things in closed sessions, behind closed doors, because of the classified nature of the information that he could not reveal publicly. Did you note this, or did any of the America media maggots, uncurious as they are, ever ask the question, why is it that James Comey never returned to any committee, any meeting, at any time, behind closed doors? My supposition is maybe perhaps there was no there. And it's easy to make the assumption, it's easy to call a reporter, it's easy to make a claim that President Trump did this. And now we've got Jason Chaffetz rightly saying that he wants to see a copy of the memo. But again, I go back to, if you're an individual calling a reporter, why is it that you wouldn't do, after having made contact with a reporter, why is it that you wouldn't do something like arrange a meet? Somehow figure out a way to get a copy of this memo over to the reporter themselves, or the series of reporters. Because now you've got, it's alleged that there's a copy that exists from this leaker. Give them the copy. Let's see it. That's happened numerous times before through WikiLeaks, other methods. We've seen physical evidence, or what is purported to be evidence, against certain individuals. Now, this evidence is apparently against President Trump, and the evidence is verbal. And yet, on verbal evidence and nothing else, the Washington Post decided that it wanted to go ahead with this. Jason Chaffetz, as a result, says, rightly so, let's see it. Let's see it. He wanted to see every phone call and meeting he had with the president. Chaffetz wrote, if true, these memoranda raise questions as to whether the president attempted to influence or impede the FBI's investigation as it relates to Lieutenant General Flynn. Stop. If President Trump, in some kind of a debilitating or undermining fashion, leaned on FBI Director Comey, and it's discovered through whatever evidence exists, then he's going to have to pay the political price for that. He's a big boy. He knew what he was doing when he got into the running. And so if this was something that was proved that he did, then he's going to have to take the political heat. But prove it. Chaffetz continues, so the committee can consider that question and others provide no later than May 24, 2017, all memoranda, notes, summaries, and recordings referring or relating to any communications between Comey and the president. An FBI agent's notes are often held up in court as credible evidence according to the New York Times. That's true. All the notes that I had, for example, as a detective, they were all subject to subpoena, and as a result, I had to keep all my notes throughout my investigatory career. I had to do that. All right, and why am I not getting... here we go. Let me start this over again. This is a video that I think you could benefit from hearing.
Mr. McCabe, can you, without going to the specific of any individual investigation, I think the American people want to know, has the dismissal of Mr. Comey in any way impeded, interrupted, stopped, or negatively impacted any of the work any investigation or any ongoing projects at the Federal Bureau of Investigations?
As you know, Senator, the work of the men and women of the FBI continues despite any changes in circumstance, any decisions. So there has been no effort to impede our investigation to date. Quite simply put, sir, you cannot stop the men and women of the FBI from doing the right thing, protecting the American people, and upholding the Constitution.
Here's the sad thing. About 5 days ago, the president, in a tweet, okay, this is me with a heavy sigh. 5 days ago, the president was, I guess you could say, warning Comey not to say anything or leak anything to the press, saying that there might be tapes. Tapes. Right. Just like, anyway, they're wiretapped. That's another issue entirely. The tweet goes from Donald Trump, James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press. Okay, so what does this do? This makes the press go 210 over 190, saying, oh my God, this is Nixonian. Once again, because of the Watergate tapes, Nixon had tape recorders inserted into the Oval Office, and he taped everything that happened. And then we had Rosemary Woods and the magic missing conversations, etc., etc. So it harkened all the American media maggots back to 1974 and Richard Nixon. So the UK Daily Mail continues to write, Comey and Trump talked on February 14th, according to the Times, one day after Flynn was forced out of his national security advisor position for lying about the nature of his conversations with the Russian ambassador to the U.S. Comey recounted the meeting, claiming Trump said, I hope you can see a way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy, Comey remembered Trump saying, according to the Times. I hope you can let this go. An FBI spokesperson declined to comment on the existence of any contemporaneous memo written by Comey following his February 14th meeting in the Oval Office. Stop. When the FBI writes a memo, frequently it's done on what is called a 302. To those FBI agents who are listening and those NSA people who are monitoring me right now, you know what a 302 is. It's not a note. It's an actual typewritten memorandum that becomes official and is therefore subpoenable. A note is something handwritten. So here's the big difference. Is it just a note on a scrap of paper, or is it something actually official? If it's something actually official, then it is without a doubt subpoenable. Prove it. Bring it. Produce it. FBI, do exactly what Jason Chaffetz is saying. Because finally, truly, it does need to be out there. If this is true, then it needs to go out into the ether. But right now, they're declining to comment at all. Despite the fact that James Comey put it out there into the ether by having it leaked. The leaker then calling the Washington Post, reading into a telephone. And again, I say, it's the top of the hour. That's what passes for media in the United States of America.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid promo.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sekulow as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Well, it's the top of the hour. Thank you all for being tolerant. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Tuesday edition of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Wacky events or not, thank you for hanging on. We have HP Pundit, Dan Butcher in chat. We have Mike, White Mamba. My greatest apologies to you, White Mamba. And we have Mary Brockman in chat. Mary Brockman said, I feel like Alice through the looking glass. And I tell you, I have to tell you what, yes, exactly. That's what it frequently feels like these days. It feels like this is occurring, but it's as if you're watching it from above, from some kind of an omniscient viewpoint, and you can't believe it's actually happening because it seems like it's some kind of an alternate universe of some fashion. Well, CNN then, of course, has Wolfie Blitzer, and he was talking about the possibility of impeaching. See, here we go, and you're going to listen to Wolfie in just a bit about the possibility of impeaching President Trump, and he's speaking to Senator Angus King, who is an independent in Maine, after this New York Times article.
President Bill Clinton, as you know, he was impeached in the House of Representatives, but not convicted, acquitted when it came up to a formal trial in the United States Senate. I just want to be clear, if in fact these allegations, reported first in the New York Times and now being confirmed by CNN and other news organizations, if these allegations, Senator, are true, are we getting closer and closer to the possibility of yet another impeachment process?
Reluctantly, Wolf, I have to say yes, simply because obstruction of justice is such a serious offense. And I say it with sadness and reluctance. This is not something that I've advocated for, or the word has not passed my lips in this whole tumultuous 3 or 4 months. But if indeed the president tried to tell the director of the FBI who worked for him that he should drop an investigation, whether it was Michael Flynn or whether it was some investigation that had nothing to do with Russia or politics or the election, that's a very serious matter.
So what will your Intelligence Committee...
It is a very serious matter. Where this is going to go, this changes day by day. And as I've said now, all the American media maggots are interested in is making whatever this is about the process, about process itself. There's so many potential investigations that could be made on everything. When, how, where do you actually get any governing done anymore? President Trump is far from the most brilliant individual ever produced by mankind. But with the forces arrayed against him, I don't know how he makes it from day to day. Here's another situation. Rand Paul now thinks that he and other senators were surveilled, by the Obama administration.
Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano right now. Judge, these are very strong accusations. Your thoughts?
Well, they're most likely true. I mean, think of this as a three-step process. Surveillance, which is the acquisition in a digital version of every keystroke on every computer and every communication on every cell phone and landline phone. Storage, which is the maintenance of the digital version of these communications, and then unmasking, which is as accessing this data and finding out the names of the people who were actually surveilled. So it is beyond dispute that the NSA has access to, if it wants, it would be unlawful for them to do this, but they have it, every phone call of every person in the United States of America since 2005. Takes us back to a Republican administration, George W. Bush, 2005, which is when this program began. Justice Scalia told me he often thought that the court was being surveilled. And he told me that probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Again, surveillance, acquisition of information, unmasking, accessing information.
Well, I mean,
thought that the court was being surveilled.
Go back to this again. Did you hear what Napolitano said?
Which is when this program began. Justice Scalia told me he often thought that the court was being surveilled.
Justice Scalia thought that the Supreme Court was being surveilled. When he was alive, that was the Obama administration.
And he told me that probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Again, surveillance, acquisition of information, unmasking, accessing information.
Well, I mean, step one and the surveillance is, I mean, why would the Obama administration, using government resources to spy on anybody running against Hillary Clinton? I mean, that is just wrong.
Well, it is you're exactly correct. It is the use to which the raw intelligence data can be put that makes it criminal. So if it's hard to believe, but if they had to unmask Senator Paul's name in order to understand a conversation he was having with a foreign agent, and the foreign agent was harmful to the United States, they can do that. That's not what he's talking about. They're talking about unmasking him when he's having a conversation with his campaign manager.
Right, within the continental borders of the United States.
He's running.
That's not subject to a FISA court.
In the Republican primary.
That's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978.
2016.
Exactly. Let's just be clear. This is two different things. The unmasking of Michael Flynn and the spying there is completely separate and apart from what Rand Paul is talking about. He's talking about running for president in the fall of 2016. He was surveilled, spied on by the Obama
administration. Actually, the unmasking of General Flynn might be a species of the same thing, because a lot of people believe, the president among them, that General Flynn was unmasked for political reasons. That is, portions of his conversation with Ambassador Kislyak were revealed in order to embarrass the president, embarrass General Flynn, and force the president to separate himself from General Flynn. But let me make an absolute statement. There are very few absolutes in law. The use of intelligence data for political purposes is a felony.
The use of political data is a felony.
It's the same crime as hacking, which, depending upon how much is done, is between 5 and 15 years in a federal prison.
So if another senator comes forward with this same story, I was surveilled, could President Obama be called to testify on this?
Well, anybody who was involved in the receipt or use of the information once unmasked could be called.
Go ahead, Lee. Sorry.
The FBI should be able, because you leave electronic fingerprints when you do unmasking, find out who did the unmasking in Senator Paul's case, and then trace where that information went and who used it. Did it end up in the West Wing? Did it end up in the Oval Office? Did it end up in the hands of other political opponents of him?
Do you understand what Judge Napolitano is saying? There's a big difference between what's happening under a FISA court because you're listening for people that are coming in contact without the United States. Rand Paul is alleging, Judge Scalia was alleging, that this surveillance was occurring to them within the borders of the United States. When you find out who that is, that's a large felony. Now, I told you in the early portion of the show, there's a guy that you need to read. He once was called the Yid with Lid. Now he's called The Lid. He has a wonderful blog called The Lid Blog, lidblog.com. And I'm talking about Jeff Dunitz. Today he had an article, if for whatever reason you happen to give a crap about this, but I find it oddly. It's just, it's perfectly in keeping with the temper of the times because it's all alternate universe. It's like we walked through this shimmering sparkle, and it kind of looks like the planet Earth, kind of sounds like the planet Earth, but it's not exactly the planet Earth. And his article today was Bill O'Reilly to do weekly gig on Glenn Beck's radio show. Are you kidding me? Bill O'Reilly may be down, but he's not out, and he still has a lot of friends in the TV and radio game. One of them is a former colleague at Fox News who happens to run a very successful news and entertainment network called The Blaze. Stop. Okay. The truth is, no, it's not very successful. The truth is, it was bleeding people for quite some time. The truth is, when Glenn Beck left Fox, his ratings began to plummet, and he kind of went over the deep end. And because of that, I find it just weird in this strange, warped universe sense that he's thinking about going to Glenn Beck, who's not really what you'd call the most focused and centered of individual in conservative news. O'Reilly made the announcement on the Monday episode of his podcast. We're going to do that every Friday until Beck gets tired of me. And it's a good outlet for me to, discuss things back and forth with Beck, who's a good friend. We don't agree on everything, but it's very lively. The Hill, Beck seemingly confirmed the story with a simple tweet of an article at The Hill that confirmed O'Reilly's claim. So, yes, just like the people in chat were saying, Mary Brockman, what universe are we in right now? Sometimes it's not one that I particularly am familiar with. It's so weird. Then we have the case of the article of an individual who said, President Trump, if you just say uncle, I'll let you have your way. And with that, you're probably wondering, BZ, what the hell are you talking about? Well, we all know about fake news, courtesy of leftist journalistas these days. There is now, courtesy of leftist judges and attorneys, what I call fake law. Fake news, fake law. Sometimes it melds and you can't tell one from the other. When I first saw this article, I couldn't believe that I was actually reading this, that it was accurate. And then I read it and I thought, okay, I've got to read this for the show. It's from Breitbart. It's from a guy named Ian Mason, and the article, the headline is Neil Katyal at the Ninth Circuit. If Trump says Islam is peace, he can have his travel ban. Are you kidding me? Neil Katyal made oral arguments for maintaining the injunction against President Donald Trump's executive order banning migrants from certain Muslim-majority countries Monday before the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. This is a quote from the attorney, Katyal. He could say, like President Bush did right after September 11th, the face of terror is not the true face of Islam. That's not what Islam is about. Islam is peace. Instead, we get Islam hates us, Katyal told the bench, answering Clinton-appointed Judge Richard Paez's, P-A-E-Z, Paez, I suppose, question on what, if anything, Trump could do to make the executive order acceptable. Really? All President Trump has to do, according to Katyal, is cry, "Uncle!" and all is forgiven. Really? That'll happen. Katyal, former President Barack Obama's one-time acting Solicitor General, there's a shock, has taken on the representation of the plaintiffs who stopped the executive order's implementation in March when a federal court in Hawaii ruled in their favor. The Justice Department has appealed the case to the Ninth Circuit, seeking to vacate that injunction. So, like I said, do you really think that Katyal will truly relent and back off the lawsuit if President Trump but says the magic words? Yeah, me neither. The most controversial element of Obama-appointed District Court Judge Derek Watson's ruling was its justification, just as White Mamba and I spoke about a month and a half ago. Judge Derek Watkins' ruling was its justification of the injunction based not on the text or effect of the executive order, but on statements President Trump made during the 2016 presidential campaign. Precisely. White Mamba and I agreed. Yeah, where's that coming from? Where's the precedent for that coming from? Which is why I conclude it's fake law, predicated not upon the documents right in front of the court at the time, but on mostly everything but. According to that ruling, speaking about a Muslim ban and speaking negatively about the religion's relationship with the West meant that the plaintiffs had a high enough likelihood of proving a violation of the First Amendment's Establishment Clause to block the order. Where do you get that? How do you conclude that? This is true even though the actual order does not take any action based on people being Muslim, because A, reasonable, objective observer, enlightened by the specific historical context, contemporaneous public statements, and specific sequence of events leading to its issuance would conclude the executive order was issued with a purpose to disfavor a particular religion. They make that conclusion, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, they make that conclusion because they want to. Meaning, again, that the issue was not what was immured on paper, what was before the court, but what was said out there in the universe, in the ether we're talking about, and not supported by paper before the court. A logical question was then asked. The argumentation led naturally to the question of what, if anything, could be done to save such a facially neutral order. Does that mean the president is forever barred from issuing an executive order along these lines? Judge Paez asked Katyal. What does he have to do? This is the crux of the biscuit right here, boys and girls. What does he have to do to issue an executive order that, in your view, might pass constitutional muster? What indeed? Okay, is it, 23 Hail Marys? Do you genuflect toward Mecca? Do you tap a wrist? Do you grab a razor blade? Provide evidence of stigmata? What do? Trump might gain more power to issue executive orders if he, quote, disavows, Katyal argued. One example would be what Judge Hawkins said about disavowing formally the stuff before. Speaking of stuff, you can't make this stuff up. But wait, as I always say, there's more. Let's just excise whatever unappetizing elements actually exist within Islam, okay? How about if we just do that, right? So, in addition to suggesting Trump could save his order by telling the country Islam is peace, Katyal also recommended removing references in the text of the order to the unsavory elements of Islamic society. It could remove the text which refers to honor killings, he told the court. So, two things. Trump, listen up. If you want to make your next one go through, all you have to do is publicly say that Islam is peace and that you don't believe Islam has honor killings. That's all you have to do. So, tell you what. Let's just eliminate those little niggling little female genital mutilation issues, the issues of rampant misogyny. Those, they don't really mean anything. Those little beheading issues, the Borg issues, the Bakabatsi issues with the little boys, painted faces that are used by men, the pedophilia of Islam, the internal combustion of Islam. Yeah, let's do that. Hey, as a matter of fact, though, aren't you kind of curious? Who is this guy? Who is Neil Katyal?
I'd like to tell you a bit about Judge Gorsuch. There's a reason why our Supreme Court bar has lined up behind Judge Gorsuch.
This is weird. This is Neil Katyal endorsing Neil Gorsuch.
There's a reason why the American Bar Association has given him the highest rating. I've seen Judge Gorsuch in action, and I've seen him hearing cases and studied his written opinions. This is a first-rate intellect and a fair and decent man.
Yet this guy is going to make that argument in front of the Ninth Circus Court of Appeals.
Judge Gorsuch and I served together on the Federal Appellate Rules Committee. It's complicated work and, quite honestly, not the sort that most people find particularly interesting, but the judge commits himself to it fully, and his work reflects his commitment to resolving disputes according to established standards. That is, the judge's work reflects his dedication to the rule of law.
Rule of law. Neil Katyal, isn't that like the pot and the kettle and a particular color, the rule of law? I don't see appellate judges recently, specifically with regard to any of the two EOs that President Trump issued regarding travel sanctions, I don't see particularly the rule of law being applied in either one of those cases.
The judge's commitment to the rule of law would endear him well to our founders. Ours is a government of laws, not of men and women.
Right, or politics, because as you always know, the government is apolitical. The courts, of course, are completely apolitical. The FBI director is completely apolitical.
That principle is the essence of constitutional government and the foundation of our freedoms.
It is indeed. Okay, I have about 7 more minutes to the bottom of the show. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to call Sean at the bottom of the show during a break. And I'm going to see if I can have him run me through this. I don't know if White Mamba particularly wants to call back, but by God, I certainly have to get this done. So at the bottom of the hour, we might go into a little bit longer break. I'm going to make a phone call to Sean to see if I can get there's something that I have or haven't done on the new SHR laptop here, and see if I can particularly solve that issue. In the meantime, did you happen to hear about this story in which it was asked, do you remember when Seth Rich was murdered in the District of Columbia? And the question then has recently been asked, did Seth Rich contact WikiLeaks before his death? That's an excellent question. Here's his family speaking, the family of Seth Rich.
From what we gather from what we've heard from the detectives and what we learned from Kelsey, he was talking to her. She heard some noise on the phone. She said, "Are you okay? Are you home?" He says, "Yeah, I'm home." And then it's, "I have to call you back." And we don't know what happened there, except he ended up shot twice in the back and they said he was talking to the officers when they first got there. He was maybe stable when he got to the hospital, and then things went bad, and bullets and people don't match well.
He had bruising on his face, he had bruising on his knuckles, and he had bruising on his knees. So we know he struggled, but we believe someone came from behind him. Was he pushed down? What the struggle was, There's no surveillance yet that we have heard of or anything. We know the police are looking for that, but we may never know what actually happened.
If it was a robbery, it wasn't successful because the police have all his belongings, cell phone, wallet, credit cards, money, so
nothing was taken.
Nothing was taken from him, so if that's what they were trying to do, they got scared and they ran off. And he was a caring person, that he wanted to make a difference. And unfortunately, those visions, those ideas are going to have to be unfulfilled, that he's not able in the communities or the whatever things he was working on. His biggest thing now was helping make sure that people, who wanted to vote, that they could find the polling places, they could vote, so that everybody can do what they want, and that we can have a better nation.
He also would tell you, make the most of every moment, because you never know when the next moment isn't going to exist. And laugh.
I think that hits so many of the points about what Seth, how we wanted to live, and it's like, make a difference, do good things, treat people fairly, and try to make the world better. I think that's what Seth's goal was, make a difference.
So did Seth Rich actually have contact with Wikileaks? That's the question that was recently outed and asked this week. And if so, because he was a DNC staffer, a Democratic National Committee staffer, when he was murdered, does this have anything whatsoever to do with his shooting death? That is, his contact with WikiLeaks. Was Seth Rich actually home, as his family says in the piece we just played? Was he inside the apartment, or was he outside? Where physically was he shot? We know he was shot twice in the back, but where physically was he standing? Was he inside? Was he outside? Here's the story that broke it.
As a DNC staffer, the conspiracy theories online have taken a life of their own. But today, Fox 5 has learned there is new information that could prove these theorists are, in fact, right. New information from the family's private investigators suggests there is tangible evidence on Seth Rich's laptop that confirms he was communicating with WikiLeaks prior to his death. Now, the question is, why has D.C. police, as the lead agency on the investigation for the past 10 months, insisted this was a botched robbery when till this day there is no evidence to suggest that? The Rich family hired Rod Wheeler, a former MPD homicide detective, to run a parallel investigation into their son's death. Wheeler says he believes there's a cover-up and the police department has been told to back down from the investigation.
The police department nor the FBI has been forthcoming. They haven't been cooperating at all. I believe that the answer to solving his death lies on that computer, which I believe is either at the police department or either at the FBI. I've been told both.
But you have sources at the FBI saying that there is information
For
that
sure.
could link Seth Rich to WikiLeaks?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's confirmed. Actually, I have a source inside the police department that has looked at me straight in the eye and said, Rod, we were told to stand down in this case. And
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if that's true? That members of the D.C. Metro Police Department were told to stand down, as was told to this particular individual.
I can't share any information with you. Now, that's highly unusual for a murder investigation, especially from a police department. Again, I don't think it comes from the chief's office, but I do believe there is a correlation between the mayor's office and the DNC, and that's the information that's going to come out tomorrow.
And a full report with the new breaking details and this information will air tomorrow morning on Fox News Channel. Sean?
Between the mayor's office, the DNC, explosive allegations in that report, Marina. Will there be evidence, though, to prove those allegations tomorrow?
Well, Sean, Rod Wheeler, the investigator, assures us Fox 5 and assures Fox News that there's a full report that contains information that will show how many times Seth Rich made contact with WikiLeaks and will show exactly when this communication took place. Sean?
We will be watching. We will be waiting. Marina.
So this story was broken by Fox News. And it started to take a life of its own because there were a lot of questions behind the murder of what, for all intents and purposes, this was a great guy, despite the fact that he was linked to the DNC. Everyone will forgive him that. He's young. But for all intents and purposes, he was a great guy. Robbery wasn't the motive because apparently everything was left behind. There were things not taken. There are huge questions to come out of this. Folks, it's the bottom of the hour. I'm going to play a cut for you about when Senator Rand Paul was interviewed on Morning Joe over Trump spying allegations. And as this is going to go, I'm going to be making a phone call because I've got to figure this situation out. Besides, this is an interesting cut because Rand Paul pulls out some knives.
Of Kentucky. Senator Paul, always good to have you on, sir.
Thanks.
You said yesterday this is a smoking gun, the Susan Rice story. You called it an enormous deal. Why do you disagree with Bill Press?
Well, for years, both progressives and libertarians have been complaining about these backdoor searches. It's not that we're searching maybe one foreign leader and who they talk to. We search everything in the whole world. There were reports a couple of years ago that all of Italy's phone calls were absorbed in a 1 month period of time. We were getting Merkel's phone calls. We're getting everybody's phone calls. But by rebound, we are collecting millions of Americans' phone calls. If you want to look at an American's phone call or listen to it, you should have to have a warrant, the old-fashioned way, in a real court where both sides get represented. But a secret warrant by a secret court with a lower standard level because we're afraid of terrorism is one thing for foreigners. But both myself and a progressive, Ron Wyden, have been warning about these backdoor searches for years and that they could be politicized. The facts will come out with Susan Rice, but I think she ought to be under subpoena and she should be asked, did you talk to the president about it? Did President Obama know about this? So this is actually eerily similar to what Trump accused them of, which is eavesdropping on conversations for political reasons.
And the slider's up.
They're totally different, I'd have to say. They're totally different. The idea that the President of the United States, and that's what Donald's accusation is, the President of the United States ordered wiretap
so I didn't mute it. I mean, I had it muted while I was waiting, but then he didn't come up. So those things,
that's very different. But the idea, the problem with Trump's tweet was that it was false. But what we have now is a story that seems to be true, which is, and again, what Senator Paul is saying is, they have the ability. If you have any contact with overseas, if somebody you don't even know they're overseas contacts you, that our government has that ability to come after us is chilling precisely because it can be used for political purposes. And when Bill is saying, oh, the National Security Advisor is not political. It's somebody who serves at the pleasure of the president. And we know Susan Rice. We know her history. We know that, she spun us into the Libya war. In my memory, people who lied us into wars are not looked on as these apolitical, intelligence assets. This is a scary thing that's happening.
Yeah, if I may. Listen. The Secretary of State serves at the pleasure of the President. The Defense Secretary serves. The FBI Director serves at the pleasure of the President. And we call them political appointees, political hires. That does not make them political animals, which would...
But I'm distinguishing from career intelligence
She was not a political operative. The other thing I'd like to point out to Senator Paul is, again, they were not spying on these Americans. I've got a problem with all of that blanket NSA spying, too. They were listening to conversations by foreign nationals, of foreign adversaries from Russia who are in this country. We spy on them, they spy on us. That's the way it works. And in those conversations, they picked up all these Trump people that were talking to them.
Senator Paul?
The objections that civil libertarians have had to this program is that you've lowered the standard. We'll spy on foreigners at a drop of the hat. We have no standard of the Fourth Amendment at all. And some of that I can agree to. But by rebound, we're collecting millions of conversations of Americans. Those should be protected by the Fourth Amendment. And frankly, I think Bill sounds a little bit more like apologist for the Democrats here than he does about someone who's concerned about the Fourth Amendment and Americans' privacy.
Senator, you did call this a smoking gun, which says that you believe this proves some sort of collusion, perhaps, between the Trump campaign and Russia. What do you believe it's a smoking gun for?
The smoking gun is that President Trump said that he was wiretapped. We don't have wires in our phones anymore. Nobody actually literally taps a wire. They might on occasion, but for the most part, we use the term wiretapping to mean eavesdropping. So now we know that someone in the Obama administration was eavesdropping and specifically searching a data bank looking for the Trump people. That's a big deal.
Senator, there's a difference, between incidental surveillance, which is what this was, and ordering wiretapping on an office.
I think it's a mistake.
To assert that this proves what Donald Trump said is true,
I think it's a mistake.
Irresponsible.
I think it's a mistake to downgrade this and say, oh, it was just incidental, it's no big deal. It is a huge deal that we are collecting millions of Americans' phone calls and that someone can go to a keyboard and put your name in and search it without a warrant. This is an illegal, warrantless search. This is the kind of stuff that is rife for abuse from either party. And Joe had it exactly right when he said, if Dick Cheney did this to the Obama administration, Bill and every other leftist in the country would be on the other side of this issue. It's not
Senator,
a partisan issue.
But you know what? It's very, very different thing to say someone in the Obama administration was surveilling, was listening to specific conversations. We just simply don't know that.
Well, here's the thing: is you can order the specific listening device, or you can say, you know what, we already have it, and it's this amazing reverse targeting, and we have millions of people in a database, and I can be Susan Rice and go down and type Donald Trump or General Flynn into a database, and boom, up comes all this information. Is that not the same as ordering the surveillance? They know it exists. Look, every international businessman or woman who talks overseas is in that database. Do we want political officials to be able to type in the name of Bill Gates and find out they have a deal going on in Europe?
That's true. That's an excellent point. Hello, I'm back. What the hell? Okay, what we've discovered, because Sean is like God. Okay, Sean frequently is like God. He may not totally be God. I don't mean God like capital G. I mean God like small g. Okay, so essentially what he did, I got through with a phone call and he said, BZ, okay, you're screwed. But luckily, apparently, he may be here tomorrow for Sackheads, and if that is true, then with luck, we can figure it out, because I got to get it done before Thursday, and it's just nice to be able to talk to White Mamba, because here's the deal. This is bad. This is like bad karma, bad juju. This is the second time that White Mamba has been kicked off of BZ's air. The first time was because Ken McClinton had a sports show that went over me, and White Mamba and I were all ready to go and do that, and then we got cut off at the knees for that. And then, of course, there's the new Skype today, which I was speaking to Sackhead Sean about, and he says, the new Skype does something different, and I got to figure out what the hell it is. Very strange. Okay, so enough of that. Enough of me crying and caterwauling and whatnot. Let's go back to Seth Rich, because this is an interesting revelation, and you heard what the deal was. The killing, when Seth Rich was killed last July in the Northwest D.C. district, and police suggested that the Bloomingdale neighborhood was a botched robbery, but a lot of things weren't taken because that's what robbers do. Certainly D.C. has its share of crime, and not nearly like that of Chicago, but still in all, the timing was what a lot of people would term suspicious. Though the D.C. Metro Police concluded that Rich was involved in a robbery that took his life. Just 2 months shy of the 1-year anniversary of Rich's death, Fox 5 learned that new information could prove these theorists right. So you have to ask yourself, after listening to that, to Rod Wheeler, and what he's had to say, is there a there? Okay. Because not having that investigatory report in my very own hot little hands, I can't personally draw that conclusion, but I do know a few things about the D.C. Metro Police. I don't mind speaking out of school because it's not my ox being gored. I could tell you all sorts of nasty things about my own department. Everyone can, but I do know that D.C. Metro does not have what one would call the most sterling reputation for immutable investigations on the East Coast. And here's a perfect example, as anybody in chat would tell you. As witness what I would consider to be the rather shabby handling of Ken McClinton's Charnice Milton case. daughter of Ken McClinton, following her murder in 2015. So this guy Wheeler, he's a former D.C. police homicide investigator. He's running his own parallel investigation into Rich's murder, and he thinks there's a cover-up. And he says the police department nor the FBI have been forthcoming. They haven't been cooperating at all. I believe that the answer to solving his death lies on that computer, which I believe is either at the police department or either at the FBI. I have been told both. There's only one way to find out what's going on. Access that laptop. But when Fox 5 asked Wheeler if his sources told him there was information that links Rich to Wikipedia, he said, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, that's been confirmed. So is that the reason that neither agency will confirm or deny possession of the laptop, and further, they're not going to release it? Moreover, just how does this Wheeler guy know anything about the allegation of the involvement of WikiLeaks anyway? He said, I have a police source inside the department, looked at me straight in the eye and said, Rod, we were told to stand down. You heard it. You heard him say that. You heard him say, and I can't share any information with you. Well, let's go back a little bit. Here's a tweet. This dates. This is October 30th, 2016. This is from WikiLeaks, and I found this from wikileaks.org about Podesta emails. Podesta. I'm definitely from making an example of a suspected leaker, whether or not we have any real basis for it. Was Seth Rich a leaker? Some people are saying yes. So the funny thing is, remember the investigator said something about Tuesday? Today's Tuesday, right? Well, this just came out from the WashingtonExaminer.com today, Tuesday. The headline, murdered DNC staffer Seth Rich had sent 44,000 internal emails to WikiLeaks. So says a report. This is by a gentleman named Kyle Feldscher. The Democratic National Committee staffer shot and killed in Washington, D.C. last summer leaked more than 44,000 emails to WikiLeaks before his death, according to a report. The Fox News report implied that Seth Rich may have been the one who leaked information about the DNC to WikiLeaks that showed, among other things, that the DNC favored Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. And that was a terrible thorn in the arse for Bernie Sanders, of course, in the presidential primary. While it's not clear, the report does note that WikiLeaks posted that information just 12 days after Seth Rich was killed. However, U.S. intelligence officials believe Russia hacked into the DNC and allowed that information to be sent to WikiLeaks, and you know as well as anyone else, Julian Assange said that WikiLeaks, or rather that Russia, wasn't the leaker. The report states federal law enforcement investigators, by the way, don't you think Julian Assange would have a pretty good idea of where those emails came from to WikiLeaks? My guess would be yes. The report states federal law enforcement investigators found 44,053 emails and 17,761 attachments between DNC leaders from January 2015 and May 2016 was sent by Seth Rich to Gavin McFadyen, an American reporter and WikiLeaks director based in London who is now deceased. That information was found in an FBI forensic report on Rich's computer done within days of his murder. Do you remember anything about John McCain? Do you remember something about Trump's dossier? Do you remember something about John McCain purposely sending an individual up to Canada to acquire a dossier on Trump that came from this McFadyen guy in London from a guy that used to be in English intelligence. This dossier had damning information in it. That's the one that was stupid. It was saying that Trump went to Russia and pissed all over the beds and whatnot. That's how far John McCain wanted to go to say anything and everything bad about Trump that he could. But after a while, with all of these little links floating around in the ozone, don't you wonder, aren't you asking yourself, this has to be tied. There's some kind of a common thread between all of this. Okay, it might be a conspiracy theory, but there's more going on than meets the eye. Will someone finally find out what that is? I wish I could tell you yes. I wish I could tell you definitely yes. It's just going to be up in the air for a while. Here's another article from the ntknetwork.com. The headline, ACLU lawyer says travel ban could be constitutional if enacted by Hillary Clinton. Now, remember we just talked to the other attorney. We talked about the other attorney, Neil, good little Neil, who said that if only Trump atoned by saying that Islam is peace, they might see clear to let his executive order stand. Now, here's an ACLU lawyer who says travel ban could be constitutional if it was enacted by Hillary Clinton. Omar Jadwat, arguing before the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, admitted that President Trump's order could be constitutional if Hillary Clinton had enacted the same order.
This was not to forward his animus, to advance his animus, but in fact was for a secular.
You mean his primary purpose?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, this is Jadwat arguing in open court. He's an American Civil Liberties Union attorney.
Because it has to be primary purpose.
And by the way, this is the 4th District Court of Appeals in Richmond, Virginia, in which he's arguing.
Up on that, then, if a different candidate had won the election and then issued this order, I gather you wouldn't have any problem with that.
Well, McCreary teaches us.
A different candidate who did not make the same expressions as President Trump did.
Yeah. Answer the question now. Hey, Omar, answer the question. Hello, Earth to Omar. Answer the question.
Yes, Your Honor. I think McCreary and other cases teach us that the same action could be constitutional in some circumstances and not in others.
No,
but I want to
have a
emphasize.
Particular question. My particular question is, if some other candidate had won
tap dancing,
won the election and issued this executive order that's before us, I gather you would have no problem with that. Is that right?
I just want to clarify the hypothetical in one sense, Your Honor. Because are we saying that the candidate or the then president issued the order after consulting with agencies, not over the objection that agencies had that in fact it would not serve a national security purpose?
Set that aside. We have an order on its face. We can read this order. And
the judge is starting to get a little bit short with you, Omar. Do you not see that? Turn your radar on. Turn your attorney radar on, Omar. Listen to what he's saying.
We have no antecedent statements by a candidate about this order. We have a candidate who won the presidency, some candidate other than President Trump won the presidency, and then chose to issue this particular order with whatever counsel he took, whether it's his personal advisor in the White House or with the Secretary of State, Homeland Security, or National Security, or whatever. He issued this executive order. Do I understand that just in that circumstance, the executive order should be honored?
Yes, Your Honor. I think in that case it could be constitutional. However, Your Honor, I think that it's important to understand that this order, even taking all of the purpose out of it, even if it were for...
You basically want to...
Listen to this. Listen to this.
Set aside the prescription of Mandel, which says an order such as this, which on its face is legitimate, becomes illegitimate because of campaign statements that were made by the candidate for president.
Not at all, Your Honor. I think we should...
Well, it seems to follow from that...
Yes, hello, again. Earth to Omar, the ACLU attorney. Are you grokking what this judge is trying to tell you? Do you ever want to appear again before this particular judge and not be considered a goon?
Are you agreeing that the order is legitimate on its face?
No, Your Honor. So
why not?
Why not? By the way, this is Judge Keenan now, who's in.
Let me start from the
Well, just answer a question. Is it legitimate on its face or not, in your opinion?
I don't think so, Your Honor, because...
The other guy is Judge Shedd, by the way.
The order is completely unprecedented in our nation's history.
No, it's not. That's a lie. That's a bald-faced lie. We know tons of times that orders like this were given. They came under, for God's sakes, Jimmy Carter. Don't lie. You're lying in court.
Even with a secular purpose, there is no...
The first order on anything is invalid?
No, Your Honor. But you would...
It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's all predicated in lies.
Many
I tell you
who are
again...
frustrated with what they control. Tonight, correspondent Doug McKelway tells us about how the Constitution...
Hang on. This stepped off just a little bit. I don't want to play this for you just yet. That was fake. We've heard about fake news. I told you today about fake law. That's another indication of fake law. The thing about this that's so befuddling and absolutely infuriating is this is now becoming the norm throughout the United States. In order to oppose Donald John Trump at every opportunity. Well, we know, yes, and that was Brett Baer that you heard, who started speaking. Brett, you have to know your place in the saloon. Don't speak out of turn, sir. We know this is leading, and a lot of people want it to lead, and I wanted to ask this of White Mamba. What about, because people are pushing for a convention of the states, opening a constitutional convention. All right, Brett, let's talk about it. People want it. What do you think?
Americans who are frustrated with what they see out of Washington are looking into a little-known option for taking back power and control. Tonight, correspondent Doug McKelway tells us about how the Constitution itself could be changed.
A taunting chant on the House floor after passage of the health care bill was a new marker of the open hostility in dysfunctional Washington. Dueling used to be one way to settle political insults, but Article 5 of the Constitution offers a more civilized way, a convention of the states, something not done since before the signing of the Constitution.
It is the only process that is available to address what Washington is doing. Washington is not going to fix itself.
In his book...
Boy, is that true. Washington is not going to fix itself. The swamp does need to be drained. But when you threaten the lives of the animals in the swamp, you can definitely expect that they're going to fight back, and they are. So what are the options? Is Article 5 one of them?
The Liberty Amendments. Author and radio host Mark Levin describes the remedy of a convention of the states. With 9 million listeners a day and known to draw huge crowds to his book signings, he has increased its popularity, helping to spawn the Convention of States Project. It claims 2.8 million volunteers, expected to grow to 10 million by year's end, with directors in every congressional district. While 11 state legislatures, most recently Texas, have already supported a convention of the states, that number is far short of the 34 states the Constitution requires before a convention can be called.
People who believe in liberty get behind this. I think we'll get our 34 states. And I'll tell you one other thing. If we get 15, 18, 20, 22 states, I think Washington is going to begin to shake. And Washington's going to understand that there is a process in the Constitution that actually bypasses Washington.
With Republicans in full...
Okay, stop. Just for a second. I don't know if you remember, there was probably at least 10, maybe 15 years ago, people on the right were suggesting that there needs to be a constitutional amendment that the flag of the United States shall not be burned, abused, stomped on, etc., etc. And there were those on the right who were saying that we need to open a constitutional convention in order to get this passed. Caution. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. Danger. When you open a constitutional convention, all kinds of asshats can enter it. You have to be doing it with your eyes fully open. Is this truly the right solution at this time?
Control of 32 state houses. Supporters believe a convention is within reach. They say its agenda would likely include requiring a balanced budget, reducing the federal regulatory burden on the states, restoring state sovereignty by eliminating federal mandates and grants, and allowing a two-thirds majority of the states to override Supreme Court decisions, federal laws, and regulations.
I said from the Senate floor in 2006, there's a rumble in our country. You just saw the part of the rumble with this last election. The founders added this to the Constitution because they recognize that never in history has a central government voluntarily ceded power back to its people. So this is the safety check.
Opponents fear a convention dominated by special interests.
That's exactly what I was saying. Now, I like Mark Levin. I can only take so much of Mark Levin because listening to Mark Levin is kind of, for me, just because of my sensitive pixie-like ears, listening to Mark Levin for any more than about a minute or two is like listening to either nails on a chalkboard or listening to Fran Drescher hiccup. I can't take it for very long. I love the message that Mark Levin has. The voice, not quite so sure.
Might result in the evisceration of hard-won legislative and court victories.
Any constitutional right should be up from grabs, from the freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, the right to privacy, to overturning Supreme Court cases around marriage equality and health care and abortion.
But the founders provided yet another safeguard against such overreach. They required 3/4 of the states, or 38 of them, to ratify any constitutional amendment passed in a convention of the states. A high bar, indeed. Brett?
This is one to follow. Doug, thank you.
And it's a high bar for a reason. But in the last few minutes of the show, I have to ask you, are we there yet? Do we really need a constitutional convention? Are things in D.C. so incredibly broken that we can't seem to fix it without going there? To me, that's a big gun. That's a big cannon. I'm not yet convinced that we need to fire it. Perhaps if I were listening to Mark Levin a little bit further, I would. So, it's a huge weapon. Do we pull it out or don't we? Everyone agrees D.C.'s broken. Everyone agrees the federal government is broken.
Monsieur has been locked!
We'll meet again.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon on the SHR Media Network. I apologize to White Mamba and I apologize to everybody else. I'm a blithering idiot when it comes to new programs, and we've got 2 new programs on a brand new SHR laptop. Tomorrow, tink tink, we might have it fixed. I can only hope.
Always do.
If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at bzepp and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them for your musical needs at reverbnation.com.
To the full.
Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin, Skunkworks, and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And of course, my tiaras are by My Little Pony.
You saw me go.
Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. Crossed fingers, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Thank you ever so kindly for listening live. Thank you for listening in podcast. Thank you for being in chat. God bless. Take care. Be safe. God bless this nation, the United States of America.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.